Okay, before I got too far along, I wanted to make another one of these, the second, and I just want to cover what I've covered so far, what I've encountered so far, and the different things that I've done. Starting points. Remember, you're going to continue to see ugly things for at least a design review meeting or two. But starting from here, this is something I actually did the last time and just didn't bother including it. In terms of this lower level, because I always just look at the whole plan, a few things I want to mention with regard to this, because in one way or another we're going to be dealing with 4 different levels for this house. We're going to begin to refer to them consistently as this very bottom level will be 0, the level with the dining room and kitchen and living area will be level 1, the level with most of the bedrooms will be level 2, and the planned master bedroom will be level 3. So down here at the lower level, just to cover a few of the items that I can't help but cover, the only area to deal with is this. There is only a bathroom on this level and then on level 2. There is no bathroom on level 1. In addition, there's a swimming pool here, so this bathroom's got to be pretty well used, I would think. And I just looked at a few brief things with regard to perhaps how that could be improved, and it was a couple different things. First of all, this isn't within code right now. You need 21 inches in front of the rim here, and I don't think that we have that there. I'm almost positive we don't. And I moved the wall out a little bit here. This wall here, I moved that a little bit north, and then I replaced this though with one of these Kohler Veils, V-E-I-L, which has this tank mounted in the wall. These are kind of pricey though. So the other alternative though is to move, another alternative is to eat up a little bit of that space in the garage. I'm just showing arbitrarily 2 feet, and in which case we don't need really the Veil toilet even, unless we want to bring that wall back. Keep the Veil toilet and you can bring that wall back, or get rid of the Veil toilet, and maybe that wall, you don't need 35 inches there in any event. And just, do we move these machines around? I know this is not part of the project, but then that's why I'm just covering it briefly. But because that is going to be the laundry area, presumably, for the foreseeable future, and that is going to be the only bath that's close to this pool without traipsing through the house, I wanted to address that. This last bit just moves that wall back and gives you a little bit more passage through to the laundry facility, even shifting that door down some. Really, that door could probably be swung inward like this, so that was going from this to that, and that uses 2 feet of that right hand bay in the garage though. You wouldn't need the whole 2 feet, because you still have about 3 inches to spare here using a standard elongated toilet. In any event, that was it on that floor. And up here on the main level, on level 1, which is really all we're going to be dealing with for the rest of this film, this is the existing situation we have here now, with some of the dimensions in here. And this arbitrarily just pulls this west wall out 10 feet, just to get a feel for where this could go, because I know we talked about a big space within here, which is 22 feet from the face of the existing hearth. And then if we use this as the margin, this is the existing kitchen margin, 11 foot wide, then you have 18.6 by 22 foot 1. But I felt like that was a little bit much starting out, so I brought that back as a starting point to where it's 20 feet, adding whatever that is, adding 8 feet to the left hand side, to the west side. And I made a review of the code requirements, the zoning code requirements for your area there, and these red lines are, you can build out to these red lines with a few exceptions here and there. So I do want to mention early on, because I thought, so we have 8 foot is the side yard setback line, and these are those walls, just so you know what is happening here. Here's your lot line. So we actually have about 12 feet or so on that north end if we want to go that way. And so that hatched area is the proposed 8-foot addition in this go-in look, where it's 8 foot this way and whatever that is, 35 feet that way. And this zooms out to give you a feel for the proportion of it. This is the grass terrace, those existing walls. This is that 20 foot, whatever it is, 20'6" from the hearth, with the expansion of the kitchen here. I admit, I think we're going to need more than that. But this was a starting point, and it was before you even really sent over the photographs. And this is that large tree out in the front, and here's your sycamore tree out back. Coming in a little closer to this with this starting point, 208A, and I think the reason I immediately went to expanding to that north end, particularly after I received the photographs, was this fireplace. If this fireplace stays here, and let's presume that it does for now, it dictates kind of what is happening here, kind of what this space exists as, which only leaves that 11 feet. And I just knew from the appliances themselves that this length I didn't feel was going to be enough to give us what we were looking for, which is why I immediately looked at expanding to the north as well as to the west, something like this. And that's what I think I began. It's been a little while since I put this together. There's your old screen porch, the remnants of your old screen porch, and here's the 8-foot addition. And we'd have to move that air conditioning unit a little bit to the east. And then that comes out, I'm just showing that 4 feet starting off. Right, and this is looking a section through that addition looking south. And this, again, we're not dealing anything with the second floor in this film, and that's why you're going to see brick nonsensically up here on this second level in some of these representations. Presumably, though, I'm not even dealing with the ceilings in this film here at this point yet, whether this becomes a lifted ceiling like that or whether it comes along flat. In any event, we need to have insulation space up here of 10 inches, which pretty much dictates where these come down here, unless we go some sort of a flat roof up here. And so we can get a 412 pitch in here and still come under those existing windows. They're going to be somewhere else in that wall, but probably that similar size will be reused, which gives us a little more dimension to work with in the kitchen, having this here. And this is your existing appliances and countertops, and I've shifted those over here. And again, this is all just kind of experimentation to see where to take this all. That's 346 square foot addition. And then obviously we're not going to have this hole open here. So I've kind of shown, what we can occupy. We're not going to have this huge countertop. You'd have to climb on top of it to wipe it off. Now, this view tells you how this space is to be divided, and you guys will determine that, okay? We're now showing this, whatever that was, an 8-foot addition for now, which gives you 20 feet from the existing hearth. This is what you have to work with in terms of this hardscape terrace out here and your space inside. Just dealing with this side to side and up and down space right now. And I will try to make this as simple as I can. Right now, what I was assuming, or what I'm showing, there are a number of issues, okay? First of all, this down to this wall is at least 3 or 4 steps from here. So the first question to be answered is, how many steps down do we come from this family room once I put the doors in here? How many steps down do we come to here? And for the duration of this film, for now, I'm just showing you stepping down one time to here. Now, leaving the interior alone for a minute, you have this space to work with out here. And what I have done for this starting point, there are a couple different options you can do. I have built new walls similar to these in here and made this planting space down here. I've done that for a number of reasons. Yes, you can bring the hardscape terrace all the way out to the edge of that front edge of that wall, but it will be about 56 inches down then from the top of that wall. So you would have to have a fence around that, a railing around that or something like that, which if that's what you like, and that's what you could, if you did all that, you could still create, a random planting space within the up at that level. Either way, if you only come down 1 from here, you're going to be going down another 7 to get to this sidewalk here, and 7 down here. So you can bring the terrace all the way out to here and put a railing around it, or you can have a second wall up here, and then this is only 30 inches to the grade, so you don't need any kind of railing, and the top of this wall would only be 27 or 25 inches or whatever down to this bed here, so you wouldn't need a wall there. That's not saying people still might not be able to fall off of that edge depending on what is going on out there. So these are things to be considering through this film. I won't model everything, but I'm just trying to give you enough ideas that you'll be able to lead that. And then right on time, you sent these photos over of kind of the kitchens you liked for a variety of reasons. We assume the rustic look and the cabinetry itself through all of these. One of the consistencies through all of them is that the hood is kind of kitted out in various ways with some sort of internal range hood elements. And any of these sorts of things are possible with what we have to work with. We don't quite have the scale, certainly not of this one, but we don't quite have the scale to work with in some of these as this go-in point. And this was that 8 foot here and 4 foot here addition from that end. And here you see this, where this, at least at this end, has been modeled, where this is the 8-inch wall that comes up to where you can just have one step down here. That will have to have some slope built into it, so there's a little bit of a question about how we do that, because if we have walls here, these are almost always built level at the top, so we would have to have slopes built into this patio work, into this hardscape work, to handle the water and still finish out at the same level at these areas here. But dealing a little bit more preliminarily with the kitchen, coming in here close, these are all your appliances that you have given me on that list. I've worked them into the plan here and modeled them where they're close enough to what you're going to have to represent. And you can see we're kind of squeezed for space already just looking at it going in. And this random arrangement here is just a starting point, where do we put them? And we have a lot of island space here as well. With this wall microwave, I believe as I go forward, I think I conclude that you would be better off with a drawer microwave. It can still be the 30 inches wide, and they make some pretty nice ones. I can't remember the brand, but they do make some nice ones. I just go to AJ Madison and refine that by microwave drawer and width, etc. And you'll end up looking at. But I pretty much got rid of this wall-mounted microwave. I kept your double ovens; those are very nice. But zooming out a little bit to look at a few more of the issues that we want to be considering in this film. First, we know that doors are going to go down here. Right now I'm just showing a 12-foot door opening, and I show that door centered on this fireplace. But these doors can be any kind of, they have nano walls and other brands besides nano walls, where you could just fold this whole thing back. Particularly, you're going to have some room here that you would have space to fold it back. They have arrangements where it pockets back like this, and it's just stacked right here. And they have just straightforward doors where there would be a panel here and then a set of 6-foot doors here and a panel here. So a whole variety. Or you could have sliding doors, a 12-foot slider. If it parted in the middle, you would have 50 or 60 inches, 70 maybe, in that middle to come out. So I would advise that you do a little shopping on doors and see what appeals to you as far as that goes. And where do we set the south margin of the kitchen? It can be really, it can flood over this way. Yeah, apparently the film jumps around a little bit in its discussion. This is looking from the pool deck or the pool sidewalk here down along the bottom, and this is 30, 32, something like this. And this shows that net fall. I think actually I've refined that to where it's 60 inches from the surface of your floor inside to the sidewalk down here. Actually 60 from the patio, 67.5 from the inside floor. So that's the net here on the side, because you're further upstream on that sloped patio. And this is the modeling of those little short walls like this, and you can see that you have these stairs going back, and there's further refinement further in the film. Coming back inside, that is the hardscape terrace run all the way out to the edge of those little walls, the new little walls, and the dimensions that way. So that was 8'1", and there's your dimensions there. 18.5 of terrace before the edge of that wall, and you drop to the bed and out another 2'8" or so to the front edge of that wall. But this is the 8'1" addition, or 8-foot addition. This pushes that out another 2 feet. And as I recall, we did that. I did that because I think it was going to be necessary. In any event, that's looks like that's where the film is going now. Not only did I feel that we're going to need it more inside than out here on this terrace, since this is only going to be used half of the year, you had some space to work with here to make up for that. Yes, when we used this terraced approach, you had 18.5, and this brings it down to 16.5 now. But you have this 2 feet here to work with in different ways if this begins to become too small. But I definitely felt that we were going to need the additional room in the kitchen and in the family room as well, just as a matter of scale. I'll also mention it here, and because I don't model it, but I do mention it at the end of the film, is that it ends up not making much sense to have these beds come back beside these stairs down here, and you'll see as we go forward. Now looking at the kitchen some more for some other items within that. This is the existing wall here, and this is our expansion here. Again, we have space if we really want to. We can go out here another 6 or 8 feet if we really want to make this a much bigger space here. The dining room presumably doesn't change size, and we're going to have some sort of a beam across here. But this beam is necessary. Having some sort of a beam across here is necessary, and it's not going to be able to do that unless you use some steel and some serious work. We're not going to be able to do that without having some sort of a support column somewhere along that, and we're not going to have that within this family room area. So I'm showing it there. You probably push that in a little bit, push that down south a little bit, but I'm showing it there as a starting, just to see where the heck I'm going. And these are the second floor walls here, these red ones. Now it could come down where it's in line with this wall, making this kitchen wider and squeezing this down some from 17.6 to 17.6 from 18.6. So there's a little bit of flexibility there to get more space within the kitchen. But if we're going to have this beam, and it is going to be below the ceiling, these aren't the right things. I haven't sized it yet, or hadn't sized it yet at this point, but it's going to be a 9 or 12-inch beam that is below the ceiling here. So right now what you're seeing, these here are just the framing members, 7 inches, because this ends up needing 4 9s or 3 11.5s or 11.25 LVLs for this beam here. Any of these other ones are just decorative, because I don't think this would look good with this single beam through here unless we were going to push this out another 2 or 3 feet at least and just have a single beam through the center of this whole space. That seems a little excessive and starts really squeezing that hardscape terrace. Here you see I've run the hardscape terrace all the way up to the edge of your existing wall, and you would have some sort of a fence here, or a railing here. But looking at these beams and their spacing, there's no real good answer, because this one here has to be here, which means this 9'4" automatically happens there. And I'm not right now I'm not looking at subdividing this with even smaller beams where you have a whole coffered ceiling. Right now I'm not, because we also have whether or not this ceiling is lifted in here. I know it's a lot to consider, but I have to, so you have to. And then it became a question of, do we have this column mirrored across that countertop? Bring the countertop out a little bit, 4'6" from these appliances here, maybe a little bit more. And this was just dividing that up, because as I said, we weren't going to have that kind of a big island. And this is just to see, or just to show you, once we do this, this is the kind of space we have to work with. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on your screen. But this was just a starting kind of point. I'm thinking that if there are two of these beams here, this cooktop arrangement and its hood, or whatever we do there, is going to be centered between those two. I did size this beam here, but I did not have any of the loading from the second floor roof or this new roof that's out here, or its ceiling, etc. So it's almost surely that when I go back and add those roof loads in, this is going to go probably to 4 11¼ LVLs. I took a few minutes and actually sized this beam here with the roof loading from the new roof here and from the existing second floor above it. And these are the possible solutions for that beam when we come all the way across here and we put that first support as far north as that. These are the possible solutions. And when you look at these are the heights: 11¼ 11 7/8, 12, and the lowest one is 10½. So I'm inclined to use this because I don't really care too much about the width as much as I do about the height. I don't know how this cost compares though, but these are the 4 possible solutions. I don't care for these 4-ply LVL nail ups. These 3 plies I like is fine, but these 4 plies I'm not that fond of. So this is my recommendation. This is what I'm going to work with, is the 8¾ a wide beam like this, 8¾ wide by 10½ high, because by the time we clad that with whatever we're going to clad it with, it's going to be 11¼ high, which means it'll be 7 foot roughly clearance underneath that. And because it was, I may as well see, I wanted to see what if we just eliminated this whole beam across here and ran new members that were capable of spanning that entire span. Of course, this means a flat ceiling all the way across, but eliminating that beam altogether, and any kind of decorative beaming could be added in afterward. But for that 25 foot or so, it does take a 16-inch member, which means you would have one more riser to get up there from that floor level 2 to go up there, be another riser. And you'd have to buy 23 of these as opposed to 23 of the 2x8s, which you're going to have to run 2x8s this short span anyway here. So I did a quick cost comparison just to see what it was going to take, and to buy all these is about $4 grand, and to buy these beams and the necessary 2x8s is a couple grand. So that's the delta if you wanted to eliminate that beam entirely, or if that's where this design leads. And that says nothing, of course, about the cost, labor costs or anything. So instead of doubling the 2x8s, the existing 2x8s, instead of doubling those from here to the end, which is 23 of them, you would run 23 new 16-inch high ones that would go from here to here. Now a situation like that assumes that you're going to actually make this bigger bedroom space above that, because to go to the expense and then not use all this space out here wouldn't make sense. So that's what that sort of contemplates, is the idea of expanding that bedroom to the rear, which from a design standpoint I don't particularly care for. We need more of it going to the front than the rear, in my estimation. Additionally, you can see now this second floor then would be from here all the way out to here. And all this here would be your bedroom up there, which you can see is a pretty enormous space. So and here are these 16 inches. So you couldn't just run those and then just use a regular roof. The roof would have to come up, or your walls would have to come up. So, but that was just a quick, I wanted to make sure that I took a look at that to see if it was a possible approach. Now, we had gotten sidetracked and ended up at 208C2, which was a different floor plan. And when you look at this floor plan, the difference is in where these columns are placed. Here they are further this way, but I thought that possibly that these, particularly if there's going to be 4 of them, and I'm not saying that there is, that I thought that this whole piece here probably ought to bear a direct relationship to the dining room. So that was the next thing I did, was move those up so that we have a line of symmetry coming down through the center of that dining room. And this plays into any kind of more ornate kind of wood treatments that we may use in the whole space once we get these beams sorted out, and once we get our final floor plan sorted out. Now I can see one of the things that happened is I pushed that, so when I moved this group here up to have this line of symmetry with this, we got squeezed here, so we pushed this out an additional 16 inches, which helps us a lot and helps our roof line, etc. Then I pull the kitchen window, and I'm not saying that we're going to have that triple window, I'm just running with that for the moment, but I pull the kitchen window over in the sink as well, so that everything is centered through here. I'm not saying that's what we need to have. These are kind of the dimensions, just for you to get a feel for this space as shown now at Plan 208C, which is apparently when we moved that wall out the additional 16 inches. And this shows that hardscape terrace run all the way out with a railing or whatever around it. That's 820 square feet, and that assumes that we run that the same way all the way up north. And the smaller one's around 650 square feet. Because it's easy for me to get carried away during the making of film, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep this short, but I want to mention some things that have occurred to me as I've been making this film and over the past day or so with regard to this. And it's basically this: if you want a larger space, then I would like to experiment with having this 9'4" here, the same thing here, so we have an even roof around this structure here. And then this kitchen gets pushed that way another 4 feet, or is expanded that way 4 feet or so, which would give us a lot more. That's a much bigger space. So I haven't looked at that yet, but it is something that occurred to me. And in addition with that, then we would have, I would like to see possibly then the idea there being that this support, or this fake support or partial support, ends up, we still have to have this one. We can't stretch this any more than about what I showed, 19 feet or 18 or 19 feet with those beam sizings, and that was as good as we were going to get as far as that goes. And continuing with that idea, if that were to happen, then I see this piece, this column here ends up here, and the margin of the island is probably there. And then we have a beam here and a beam here, and then these skylights either on this west side, or my preference is to try to have them, some of them anyway, on this side, on this north side, because that is nice even light all day long. But since from a process standpoint, I start small and see how much more you might need or not need. So that is not explored as part of this film. This is a quick little review coming up here of the outside structure of this piece here, and just horsing around with that. I didn't want this big box there, so I tried to get some windows into it here and work those into the floor planning inside, because I really liked having some windows, having some view, having some dimension going out that way, rather than that just being a closed space. And this view here envisions, that range setup, the range cooktop and its hood are here. So inside we had no windows on that side at all starting out here at C, and then I began to add these windows These two could be added without changing any of these appliances, as you see here. But when we try to get one more here for the symmetry look through here, or at least a little bit more light or whatever, this one could come or go. But if we want this one here, then we have to get away from that freezer, and the alternative then would be some 24-inch freezer drawers. Maybe that gives you the same capacity, but maybe that's not the functional approach that you want to take. But that's what it took to get windows in that end, just offhand, without going any further west or going further north. That was getting some windows in that end, because you can't see the roof line here, but this is a hip roof here, so there's really only room, there's probably room for a couple skylights on this roof plane here, if we wanted. There's all the room in the world for skylights down along this west plane. Now some review of the exterior, some of the exterior things that we have to deal with. I have just shifted those same wooden stairs down here. I don't know whether they're reused or rebuilt, but I'm showing these as wooden stairs down to here. I mean, they can be concrete or whatever you like. I'm showing wooden stairs down to here, and then there's the patio, the smaller one, the 650 square feet or so patio, run out to the edge of these walls with this 24-inch planting space down here. And looking at these stairs, I don't know why that first one is set below this sidewalk like it is, where there's a short riser down here. But that's an error, and probably since these have to be rebuilt or just have to be added, it would be good if that could be corrected so that all these risers are the same through here. And this, I'm not sure what you do up here, but this just reviews what's happening with that terrain up here. How high that wall would be if you did run that up, same up this way as you do down that way, symmetrical with this front existing wall. And you know, the grade is adjusted some, and maybe some stepping stones are put off of that. And so this is as far as I've taken things right now, and this film is already approaching 35 minutes long, so I'm just going to cut it short right then, or right there for now. And you can see this is where I mentioned you don't need these little pieces of bedding going back beside the stairs because of the way that finally works out. So that is that for now, and I will continue to be working on this regardless, but I'll look forward to any of your preliminary thoughts on all this. Thanks very much. As always, it's been my pleasure.